Wasn't even added to the stage there. What's going on? This shocking technicalities here. Anyway, welcome to the Monday night's Niall Fraser show. Tonight we've got the story of Sandie Peggie. Sandie Peggie breaks the spell. We're going to spend a huge amount of the show on just this one topic because it seems to be the story of the day. I think it's a very, very important story for Scotland. Then we'll be moving over to Scotland's addiction industry. I'll be talking about the work that I've been doing over near the Safe Consumption Room in Glasgow. And then we'll be talking lastly about the warring Starmer. So all that and more coming up in the Niall Fraser show. But first, we can't start the show without the intro music. Hello and welcome to this Monday night edition of the Niall Fraser Show. And I know we've got a lot to talk about this evening. Only 100 viewers. This is unacceptable, folks. Get the broadcast shared. We're going to crack on with probably the most important story, I think, in Scotland at the moment. And that is, of course, Sandie Peggie breaking the spell. Sandie Peggie breaks the spell. Now, what do I think in its totality? It's hard, it's hard to talk about this without it bringing, a wee bit of laughter. I know it's a very serious thing. I know there's serious consequences. But the fact of the matter is, this should never, ever have made it to an employment tribunal. This should never, ever have made it to where it is now, where it's this political firestorm. It should never have made it to this point in time. But here we are. And it's so mind-boggling that, the refusal of a woman to say, hold on a minute, you can't change in here because you are a man. That in itself has made the news. It's it's made the news. It's the most important story in Scotland today. It just makes zero sense to me. But with the Greens, the SNP, they're sort of the furthering of this alien transgender ideology over the course of years and years now. I mean, people that will be jumping at the broadcast now, they'll have been in the trenches just as long as I have, if not longer, in the trans ideology trenches, fighting back against this alien ideology. And it makes me sort of sick that it's made it to here. It doesn't fill me with a lot of hope for the future, I must add. But this is where we are here in Scotland today. It's absolutely incredible. But we're going to detail, and we have got extensive notes. We were so graciously given notes by the account at Boswell today. So I did invite them on the show, but they are busy. And I know they want to keep their anonymity, which is totally absolutely fine. We could have had them on audio only, but they're busy tonight. But they so graciously gave me their notes on the case, and they're very extensive, very, very extensive notes. So let's get up the picture. Ian Masterton there, we have to credit Masterton. What a fantastic picture this is. What a fantastic picture. And I mean, we had it. We had this picture on the show mid last week, I think. And, it just goes to show just the level of chaos that this ideology is causing here in Scotland. And it is chaos. And there's the happy couple. There's the happy couple there. So they're all walking into this tribunal like a warring party. This is what it looks like. And this represents a huge component of this trans activists, these radical trans activists. And believe me, they are radical. It wouldn't be surprising that, that they could get up to some very serious crimes. But this man in the middle here, and let's just, I mean, it's a man, right? We don't need to beat around the bush on this show. We're telling it like it is. And it's not only just a man here. We're talking about a mentally ill man. A mentally ill man who happens to be a doctor, if you can believe it. A doctor here in Scotland who's clearly mentally ill. And he's trying to enter female changing rooms. And somehow he's got the sort of gleeful smile as he's entering the court, thinking that he is in the right. How can this possibly be? How can this possibly be? And of course, what would be their sort of solution to this? Well, let's upend the entire system of changing rooms, of the way our society functions forever. It's functioned this way for millennium, and yet this guy wants to upend the entire system, and it feels like he's got the NHS Fife board, either in his back pocket or they're in league with him. So we'll go into the extensive notes. We have got a guest to bring on later on, probably in about 20 minutes' time. Somebody we don't know who who the man is. Well, first time having a conversation with him 5 minutes ago. Could be, it could go, fantastic. It could go really badly. But we're going to bring him on anyway. But anyway, I personally, I would have preferred one of the women from Women Don't Leash. I've had many great run-ins with him. So if any of them want to jump on, they're more than welcome. Just say in the comments. But that's who, preferably, I would have been one of these people who are literally there in support of Sandie. And Sandie Peggie got piped into the tribunal. This is, I mean, you wouldn't believe it. We just get just the craziest stories here in Scotland. Just the absolute craziest stories. But let's look at some of my bookmarks first, because we've got some images, some videos rather. We've got some video of John Swinney's comments today. So John Swinney is out in force today, isn't he? And what's he saying? Oh, he refuses to comment on an ongoing tribunal. The classic cop-out. I refuse to comment on such an ongoing thing. But let's look at these. We'll take this down for a minute, and we'll present the screen. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring it up. Right, okay. And I'll get my wee face out the way, just so you can see. So, Boswell today. Now Boswell today was the person who so graciously gave me their notes. And looking at the notes, this person is very intelligent, very organised. They are meticulous is the word that I would use to describe this person, Boswell today. And if you don't already follow Boswell today, please do, because it's probably one of the best accounts to follow when it comes to the Sandie Peggie case, because their summations have been absolutely stellar, and we're going to read some of them now. But the refusal of the Scottish Government to discuss the Fife Tribunal isn't about legal constraints, it's avoiding political embarrassment. Absolutely spot on. They're absolutely spot on. It's about avoiding political embarrassment. The same way that Nicola Sturgeon was basically ran out of the office. She was ran out of the office because of the Isla Bryson case. She got caught tongue twisting. It's just impossible to justify having a male rapist put in a female prison. It's just impossible to justify. And that's, it was so embarrassing that it led to Nicola Sturgeon's downfall, among other things. But this is a huge domino in her departure. So no law stops Parliament from commenting on an employment tribunal. They just don't want to. Well said. And let's look at some of the videos. Right, so we've got the... Again, another great account to follow, Marco Polo. Sort of neutral on a lot of things. He just posts the news as he sees fit. He takes the best articles, the best videos of the day, puts them up, and people can make of them what they will. So we'll get this big screen and we'll watch this.
By using he, him pronouns when talking to colleagues. Once concluded, this process has a wide range of potential outcomes, from no case to answer to a nurse of 30 years being dismissed. The timetable, however, is shifting. This afternoon, NHS 5 said that while it couldn't comment in detail, no conduct hearing is scheduled imminently in this case. Sandie Peggie's lawyer, meanwhile, says Friday's hearing has been rescheduled at her client's request. The employment tribunal won't sit again for months, but this case remains firmly in the public eye. Stephen Gordon reporting Scotland, Kirkcaldy.
Well, the story looks like it will become an issue in the political world this week as questions are raised with government ministers about it. Our political correspondent Lindsay Buse is with us now. Lindsay, is this likely to be raised in Holyrood this week?
Well, Laura, the Scottish Conservative MSP Niall Fraser had hoped to pursue this case here at Parliament with questions to the First Minister and the Health Secretary in the coming days. He's expressed disappointment this evening that his questions have not been selected. The Conservatives could still raise this issue later in the week with the First Minister. Now, Mr Fraser told the BBC today that he wanted the Scottish Government to intervene in this case and ask NHS 5 to reach a settlement with Sandie Peggie. He claims that she has been unfairly treated. The government says it won't comment on an ongoing employment tribunal. Now, in the past, the Conservatives have been highly critical of the Scottish Government's attempt to introduce gender self-ID reforms, a policy they claim became ingrained in the approach of public sector bodies when it came to issues like the provision of single-sex spaces. Now, the party perhaps seeing this case as an opportunity to challenge the government on what has become a politically difficult issue. The First Minister, John Swinney, he says it's up to individual organisations to ensure they meet their legal obligations on single-sex spaces, and that is set out in guidance. He could face further questions this week, though, on whether that guidance is clear enough.
Okay, Lindsay.
Right. So, if you didn't really get me back on the stage. Right. So, of all the political people involved in Scotland, who can really comment on this but the Scottish Tories? And that's the thing, right, isn't it? Who can really comment on this story besides the Scottish Tories? The SNP, of course, John Swinney's not going to give a comment. Of course he won't, because his party was hugely instrumental in bringing forward this gender nonsense, this self-ID fiction, and to write it into law, nonetheless. So, I mean, who else is going to comment on it? The Greens are certainly not going to comment. The Lib Dems are certainly not going to comment. Labour are certainly not going to comment, because all of them are instrumental in bringing forward this fakery, this forgery, this legal fiction, which was known as self-ID, this gender spell. And, you know, I called it, but even before the tribunal began, I said that NHS 5, they better just pay her out now. They better just pay Sandie Peggie out now. And I'll stick with it. NHS 5 is going to have to pay Sandie Peggie a huge amount of money as a settlement. A huge. And personally, I hope that Sandie Peggie doesn't need to work another day in her life. Why? Why do I think that? Well, as I was chatting with a guest earlier on, and it feels like, I sort of brought up the analogy of, it only takes one person to point out and say, the Emperor's not going to he's not wearing any clothes. It's an Emperor is wearing no clothes incident. And it only takes one person, and it's I would say it's, in this the analogy, it's an innocent child that points out to the Emperor, you're not wearing anything. But in this case, it just takes that one person to say, just that one person to call bullshit. And Sandie Peggie is that person. So, and again, you can't legislate. You can't legislate for someone a woman feeling uncomfortable in a changing room when a man walks in. How are they going to, you actually can't legislate on somebody's emotions and feelings, especially when it comes to, safe spaces for women. It just can't be done. So this is inevitably going to end up with a huge settlement going to Sandie Peggie from NHS 5. And it's not as if our NHS can afford to lose much money at this point in time. Our NHS is on its knees, especially the Victoria Hospital in Kirkcaldy, which I know personally. But we've got this man rolling around, and we're going to get into the notes just very shortly to get the sort of the chronicalization. We'll get the timeline, all the events, all the key moments in this tribunal. But we can't have doctors rolling around pretending to be women and just forcing their way into women's changing areas. You can't. It's just it's very interesting that the rubber has met the road in a medical setting, which was always going to be the case. It was always going to be the case that it comes to a medical setting, because this is where human biology matters. This is where it doesn't only matter, it's pivotal to people's health. It's pivotal to people's treatments. So the fact that we've got this delusion, this transgender delusion in hospitals is in fact despicable. It's horrendous that it's got to this case, especially in this medical setting. So I mean, what I'm going to do is, I keep telling, I keep doing these things, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to play my classic video. It's only 2 minutes long. This was made 4 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. 4 years ago, I stood outside the Wallace Monument and I burned my human biology textbook. And as if by sort of premonition, this is exactly what's happening. This was exactly what was done to the law and exactly what happened with this gender ID back then. But now we're seeing the after effects of this. So I'll play the video and I'll get back to you now, and then we'll go through the chronology and we'll look at exactly what happened in this tribunal.
I'm here at the Wallace Monument, a symbol of freedom, using what's left of my free speech to draw a line under the gender-bending, anti-science, pro-fantasy society the SNP have adopted for Scotland and its citizenship, like many other countries around the globe. You might not like what I've got to say here, but it's the truth. Sometimes it hurts, but the truth ultimately sets you free. There are only two sexes. There are only two genders. Any deviation from this fact is an attempt to deceive, an attempt to make you believe the unbelievable, an attempt to make you disregard the fundamental laws of nature. Scotland isn't the only place in the world facing this psychological assault, but we can be the first to defeat the wicked practice of confusing innocent children, the wicked practice of taking advantage of young impressionable minds. Convincing innocent children that they're born in the wrong body is diabolical. Anyone watching this that's considering transitioning, which means mutilating yourself physically or chemically in order to appear more like the other sex, needs urgent help. If you're in this situation, do not transition. Don't do it because you can't go back if you regret the decision. It's utterly despicable that we've got politicians in this country, in the ancient country of ours, openly promoting dangerous unreality. It goes to show just how far we've plunged as a society. Nobody seems to have grasped just how serious, how grave this situation actually is. So to visualise what the SNP and the Greens are doing to us, I've brought along my old biology textbook. This is what the fascist SNP are doing. This is what the pushers of gender theory are doing. They're setting fire to a millennia of knowledge and replacing it with delusion. It's time for Scots to wake up, otherwise the children of Scotland will have no future.
Now that video is absolutely evergreen. You'll see me walking about in that because I'm trying not to set myself on fire. Back when I could afford razors, it looks like. So I mean, this has been rumbling on for years. That video was produced 4 years ago now. 4 years ago now. And it's it stands up, it's evergreen, it's the exact same thing. And it's funny that, this Dr. Upton, this man pretending to be a woman, if he walked into my ward and I was being treated in the Victoria Hospital, and a man pretending to be a woman, I would also say that he could easily be pretending to be a doctor as well. I mean, sue me, put me in jail. It's just the same. In fact, it's very credible to think that. So Sandie breaks the spell. We're going to bring in our guest in about 5-10 minutes, but we're going to look at some of the chronology here. And again, I just want to put massive thanks out to Boswell today for providing me with this. Without this, this meticulous, chronicling of this story, I wouldn't really be able to do this segment today. So thanks again, Boswell, today. So, and it's what a title it is. Scotland's Culture War in a Courtroom. Absolutely fantastic. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because I think it would be a sort of, it's no fair to Boswell today, just because it's all their work. I'm not going to plagiarise it all. I'll go through the main sentiments and then come back. So on the February the 3rd of this year, the tribunal opens. A 2-week tribunal begins in Dundee, pitting nurse Sandie Peggie against her employer, NHS Fife, and colleague, Dr. Beth Upton. The pronoun controversy. The judge unusually permits Peggie's legal team to refer to Dr. Upton with male pronouns, rejecting an attempt by NHS Fife lawyers to compel neutral or female terms. This sets the stage for a clash over compelled speech. You know, I just love the way this person writes. The day later, the 4th of February, Peggie's testimony. Peggie takes the stand. She denies using any offensive epithets during the changing room confrontation, insisting that she never called Dr. Upton a rapist, nor brought up chromosomes, contrary to what has been alleged. Peggie testifies that her complaint was not personal animus towards Dr. Upton's transgender status, but solely about a male-bodied person in a female-only space. I don't have a problem with Beth. I just have a problem with her coming into the changing room, at the female changing room. Totally natural, totally obvious, and completely, consistent. As well, I'm sure a lot of the women I'll be listening on this today, and they'll think, absolutely, how can any woman be putting up with that? And later on that day, in the 4th of February, the harassment admission. So under cross-examination, Peggie makes a startling acknowledgement with a touch of defiance. She agrees that by NHS Fife's workplace policies on conduct, her actions could be deemed harassment, essentially because she's told a biological male colleague he shouldn't be in the changing room. So this is effectively, it's a problem with the NHS Fife's workplace policy. This is what the problem is. This transgender ideology has made it into almost every institution now. Absolutely every single institution. And of course, NHS Fife is one of them. However, she maintains she was justified given the circumstances that she was a woman in the midst of a heavy menstrual bleed, suddenly faced with a male presence. In her words, he has a male presence and I don't want to be alone with a male taking his clothes off. Again, I feel like are we in the twilight zone here? Are we through the looking glass? Are we upside? Are we in the upside down? This is all natural, all above board. We can't have men walking into female changing rooms, and the fact that this has made it all the way to a tribunal is just incredible to me. It really is. Thanks for everyone watching. We've got over 400 people in. Well done. I sort of, this story just it makes me sick, quite frankly. So later on that day as well, Peggie insists this was about protecting her dignity and single-sex boundary, not an intent to malign a colleague. And this is the thing again. Of course, Dr. Upton, right? Dr. Upton can't internalize the fact that he's been calling a man, that he's been called a man, that he's been correctly labelled. He can't internalize that fact. This is what we're getting to the grunt of the issue here, where we have, everyone else has to walk about on eggshells because of this person. This is the heart of the issue here. Everyone else has to walk on eggshells and police their own speech because this man is pretending to be a woman. And if you call bullshit If you say the emperor's got no clothes, this person is they're going to go bananas. And they're going to, well, they're going to make spurious complaints. They're going to try to get you sacked, which, I mean, it's all going to this is all transpired, and we'll get into every single bit of it. But before I go on, we're going to get our guest on. So, you know, I don't know the man. I'm going to get him up. He's going to introduce himself, and then we're going to talk through the story again, and we're going to look for his input. He has inside knowledge into tribunals. So we're just going to get him up and we're going to go through the story. So I'll get him up and he can introduce himself. So Ian, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
If you could just sort of introduce yourself, who you are, why you decided to jump on the show, especially considering we're talking about the Sandie Peggie stuff.
Well, thank you again to Boswell for linking me to your show. And I think it's a public responsibility, particularly on the behalf of the men, to speak out in support of Sandie Peggie and against the incursion on female spaces, sports, by men, effectively. So, look, I did want to introduce myself, as you know, but it's because of this.
You don't need to use your full name. You don't need to use anything like that.
Niall, but the thing is, I can't use my full name because I'm self-employed. I have a business. Because of this toxic environment, I'm afraid of getting swarmed and swamped by trans activists. But like you, like Boswell, like so many other people, you know, men, women, speaking out, it's been glorious. It's been wonderful to see this. I've called it a tsunami of public support for Sandie Peggie against it's just nonsense. I mean, you use the term about you referred to a hospital setting. This is the perfect storm, or almost the perfect storm, because we have people who we trust, we respect, we rely on for our health in a medical setting. And I don't know if you saw Esther Davison squirm during the tribunal, and she could not commit to what, you know, whether Theodore Upton, a transvestite, you know, he wears women's clothes, no GRC, no attempts at surgery. He's a fully intact male, and he's going into women's changing rooms in what I perceive to be a goading and provocative manner.
Absolutely.
He knew she was going to, Sandie was going to speak out, and she did. And for that, I applaud her. When everyone else stayed silent, she spoke out.
I'll stop you there. Do you think, I'm sorry to interject, but do you think this provocation, you know, this Dr. Upton, she's going into the changing room looking for a provocation, looking to, you know, it's this fetishist type thing that they have to include themselves in female spaces. It's not enough to have a separate changing room or to go elsewhere. They have to include themselves. There is an element of like fetishism in this. I'm right in saying.
That
might just be me.
I think it's more antagonizing and goading and using the legislation and using how far that the GI ideology has infected institutions and establishments. Now, Niall, I have one transsexual work colleague. I have one transsexual customer, and they are decent people. If I refer to them by the terms that they wish to, if, however, I had to refer by their names, I meant, I will not use the terms she or her, for example, and I don't think that they would impose. I actually asked my customer what he felt, and he said, look, if you repeated this to the transsexual community, he said, but the gender identity crowd are embarrassing. He wants just to get on and live his life and wear clothes and as a woman. He's not a woman. He can never be a woman. Now, this is an important part of when you were reading out the timeline, and giving a quick summary. What really struck me is you were talking about whether Theodore could internalize that he was a man in a woman's space.
Yes.
Now, it's his smarminess. He's a very clever, articulate person. When he was asked the question, is he a biological female? He answered in 2 parts. He said that because he is not a robot, he is biological, and because he identifies as a woman, he is female. Now, we're not talking. I mean, I'm going to steer away because you say he's mentally ill. I think there's certainly an element of psychological issues there, but he's very, very clever. He could, when he came away from the changing room with Sandie and that exchange you referred to, when he said he was scared, he was frightened at 3 o'clock in the morning, he wrote to the GMC in panic and scared for his safety. 3 days later, he was back in the changing room and he used the phrase, "I put on my big girl's pants."
Aye. I mean, I was talking to the missus before this, and that was the phrase that she thought was most annoying as a woman. She thought that was, I mean, that really did stick with her, because it's one that's farcical, but it feels, I mean, that must be a sort of disgusting to hear from a woman's perspective.
Yeah.
A man saying, "Oh, I put my big girl pants on," and had to just go into the female changing rooms. It's having just said that she was frightened as well. Like, she didn't. I think there's sort of this contention where she says she's fighting for her safety and all that, but then right again she's right back in there. She can't wait to get back in there, in my estimation.
The confidence, the arrogance, the dismissive nature of answering questions in quite a slippery snake, with no disrespect to snakes, manner. He was very elusive. He was very, very clever, and he was playing. It was a show. He's been sainted on trans forums as sister. He wants to be a poster girl for the trans right movement. That basically he can go into a court of law, he can spout nonsense, and reliant on the legislation as it now is. But one thing comforted me about Judge Kemp, and that was he said, and I can almost quote him verbatim, someone will correct me, no doubt, but it may be necessary to make a finding of fact with regards to the sex of Dr. Upton. Now, this isn't. I was in on Twitter earlier, or X as they call it, and Nicole, Sandie's daughter account, and I was commenting, and there was a guy who said that sex and gender I say a guy, sorry. He was a clearly, I looked in his account, he's a clear TRA. And he said that sex and gender are not the same thing. Because I had brought up the issue of there is a specific crime of misgendering, and that's something that Sandie is facing a conduct charge on.
Yes.
But there is not a crime of missexing. So I asked him the question, what's the difference? How could Sandie not misgender him, but correctly identify his sex? The whole thing's balmy.
What I'll do is, when we're saying this, what you've said just reminded me of something. I mean, we've got, not only have we got this battle in the courts, right? But we've got this battle outside the courts of the public opinion, and we've actually got a battle of the crowdfunders. So there was a crowdfunder that was brought in place of Dr. Upton. So we'll share this tab and we'll bring this up. Dr. Upton had a crowdfunder started. Love and treats for Dr. Beth Upton. Let's show Dr. Beth some love and support and raise some money so she can treat herself when all this is done. So, you know, it's the battle of the crowdfunders here. And here's the Sandie Peggie one in support of Sandie Peggie. And you can see the monetary difference here. We're talking £4,300 versus £36,000. The battle of the crowdfunders. So this is, I think this is, you know, it's a display of, it's like people voting with their feet, right? And saying, no, we prefer to support Sandie rather than Dr. Beth Upton. But I thought that I would bring up the battle of the crowdfunders as we were speaking there. But let's walk through some of the chronology here, and we can comment along the way, right? So on the 6th of February, Dr. Upton was testimony. So Dr. Beth Upton, the 29-year-old trans woman, the man, gives his side of the story, not her side of the story, portraying Peggie's behaviour as bullying and transphobic. Upton says the nurse's remarks were hurtful and demeaning and left her feeling unsafe and upset at work, just like you mentioned, Ian. She recounts that on the 24th of December, this is Christmas Eve, Peggie told her, as a man, she couldn't be in the changing room, effectively invalidating Upton's female gender identity. And this is the crux of the contention here. This is what has upset this Dr. Upton more than anything else. She's broke the spell of this gender identity here. Upton testifies that she tried to sympathise at first, but then asserted, as a woman, I am allowed to change and allowed to use these changing rooms. I am not a man and I can be in this changing room. She says Peggie then even referenced the notorious case of Isla Bryson, transgender rapist who was briefly placed in a women's prison, implying Upton's presence was analogous to a male predator in a female space. And I think going back to some of the court transcripts as well, you can't. The Dr. Peggie's lawyer was sort of going after the fact and saying, you know, how do you know, what's menacing behaviour? You know, if a man walks into the changing room and then refuses to leave, is that menacing behaviour? You know, it's just, you know, it brings up all these different elements. But I mean, you got any comments on what we're saying so far before I go on?
The thing was, you know, I'm quite captivated by this, the transcripts and everything. The key thing that he said when he confronted and obviously distressed and uncomfortable Sandie Peggie was that she said, you know, you shouldn't be here, you know, and she wanted him to leave. He said, I have as much right to be here as you have. Now, we're not arguing about technicalities or slight different interpretations of the law. He, as a man, a fully intact man who is dressing up in women's clothes, who lived, to my knowledge, for 27 or 28 years of his life, dressing as a man and playing in a band, I understand it. It's a direct confrontation. He is literally spouting mistruths to a woman. Now, look, no, I don't know if you've ever seen the Young Ones clip where Adrian Edmondson, he goes up, it's Griffiths Jones or he walked up with a pig under his arm, and the Griffiths Jones says, you can't come in here. He says, you've got a pig under your arm. He said, it's not a pig, it's a ferret. He said, it's a pig. So this exchange goes on ad nauseum for a minute. And then as soon as Griff Rhys-Jones, he said, look, okay, you can't come in here with a ferret under your arm. Adrian Edmondson says, ha ha, I got you there. It's a pig. Now, it's
Right.
just...
I'm going to bring up this clip right now.
Oh, you've got it?
Well, no, I've just picked it up for YouTube, but we'll add it to the stage. We'll get it on. We'll watch it, and we'll go through it.
My mascot. A pig? No. It is. It's not. It's a ferret. It's a severely deformed ferret, I'll grant you that. So severely deformed, in fact, that it looks a little bit like a pig.
Looks exactly like a pig.
Yes. Well, it certainly has been remarked upon. In fact, just as John Hurt is known as the elephant man, bacon sandwich is known as the pig ferret.
Bacon sandwich? Funny name for a ferret, isn't it?
Aha! And that's why I had you fooled, because it's not a ferret, it's a pig.
Well done, Viv. You certainly got.
It's comedic, but it is so surreal. And the thing is, when I was on the Mumsnet forums and very, very active. I mean, there's thousands. I think there's 19,000 posts to date, right? And people were talking about the absurdity, and they were saying, why doesn't the judge look, why don't we call an end to this tribunal? Because it's so obvious the guy's a man. Why isn't the judge intervening? And I was explaining that the judge's role is to appear impassive. He cannot intervene. His job is to hear the evidence, not to show bias towards either side, and then to formulate a judgment at the end. But there came a point where you think, this is just nonsense of a biological man. And I don't like to prefix things, Niall. You're a man or you're a woman. If you go into the prefix game, if you're
playing on their territory.
Yeah, you're starting to language is a key area of battleground, because whereas women want single sex spaces, the TRAs, their goal is to engage with semantics and sophistry. And at times you think, well, hold on a second, you start unbelieving reality and you get immersed in their delusion. And, delusion was a word that, I was listening to the run up, to when you invited me on. And it is when you talked about Theodore allegedly being mentally ill, there's this form of self-delusion where you immerse yourself in a community of people. Now, he used some very, very telling phrases. He spoke about his community and my people, which is fine. There is a trans community. I've referred to them as a deviant community, and I have been banned from many forums who are fearful of getting shut down.
Well, I think that's a very accurate description.
Yeah, I would, but it's absolutely incredible that someone like Upton, who is a very educated man, and this is a good point, he qualified as a doctor, but his registration has been changed, that he's qualified or that he's registered as a female doctor. He's never qualified as a doctor, and that man is prepared to treat female patients who ask for a female doctor.
See, this is where it gets really quite dark, isn't it? Because and especially when we take it back to the medical setting as well. People like myself and you, we could get prostate cancer. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Women get breast cancer. There's different types of illnesses and diseases that are gender specific, sex specific. Sex specific treatments are required for this type of thing. And just like if you're getting patted down at the airport, you would maybe request someone of the same sex to pat you down. Or maybe a woman would, especially. It's the exact same situation, but when it comes to a medical setting, it's you're entitled to that. And for this person to sort of crowbar his way in and force his way in and say, well, I'm a female, it's them putting patients at in emotional distress. Because then they have to go along with the delusion. It's all about making other people go along with your delusion. This is what I think it is. It's like there's somehow getting off on people saying, yes, you're a woman. Yes, you're a woman. They think they're passing as a woman. They think their reality is being sort of affirmed. And anyone that's pointing and calling bullshit, as it is, as Sandie Peggie has done, it's too much for them to internalise, I think.
I agree with the points that you're making, Niall, but I wanted to bring a point up, and that is you're a man and I'm a man. Just imagine what it must be like for a woman.
I know.
And this is, look, I know I am the substitute. I am the last minute, ideally someone from Women Won't Weashed would have been here. Some of them very, very able women who are articulating and vocalizing their support, that they've been arguing for decades about what's happening. Mm-hmm. And I thought, are we giving Theodore the attention that he wants? When really, should this platform be, and this platform with you, Niall, be to encourage the many women who are sitting behind their keyboards now, maybe watching this or on Twitter, because this is our battle, but we are secondary. Because
exactly,
someone like Sandie and her family, they are surfing what is, I think, going to be a watershed moment. And we're not talking about employment tribunal law. We are talking about the Equality Act. We're talking about politics. We're talking about figures such as the health minister, the intransigence of, we're talking about misogynistic hate so often levied at, for example, someone like you or me as males. But what we're seeing here is Isha Davidson fawning to a male. She has not supported another woman, and it's a betrayal of the most wicked kind. There is a double-edged sword to that, is that Esther Davidson, has a job. She has been put in this position to go in and spout nonsense in a medical capacity to say the words, I treat everyone as individuals. Mm-hmm. Why is that woman put in that situation? We are going to see the roasting of a young woman called Isla Bumba, who is completely out of her depth. I don't know if you saw her comment that was attributed to her, that she, her job was to, basically police pronouns and tell people how to act appropriately. £47,000 a year. Now, a lot of people have said that the DEI, equality and inclusion, equal opportunities and inclusion, that it should be disbanded. It's a waste of time. Yeah. But, however, there are disabled people, there are minorities, there are ethnic groups, all who are represented. But once again, the TRAs,
it's been co-opted,
the TRAs have just swamped it, and now it's just associated with men trying to get their own way.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. It sort of it brings me to the sort of, I will be talking sort of bigger picture after this as well. So I'm going to have you on for another 5 minutes here, because I think you're absolutely you're very articulate in what you're saying. You're very you're clearly engrossed in this case. I do think it's a sort of political, it's a seismic moment for politics here in Scotland. Are we going to put up with the bullshit any longer? Basically, are we going to allow this fiction to proceed through the courts in the way that it's doing. So, I mean, in mid-February, we've got here in the notes, disciplinary moves in the fallout. So even as the tribunal pauses, NHS Fife ramps up an internal action against Peggie. She's summoned to a formal conduct hearing, reportedly set for Friday, over allegations of misgendering Dr. Upton. So again, allegations of misgendering. She's no misgendered anyone. She's correctly gendered Dr. Upton.
Yeah.
I mean, it should never make it to court. It's just it's such a farce. But Peggie's warned the hearing could result in sanctions up to dismissal, and it's putting her 30-year career on the line. And I wanted to sort of touch on her 30 years in the medical service, because I think it's actually a very important thing, because this transgender ideology, it's not always been with us, Ian, has it?
Yeah.
It's been a new revelation. It's been a sort of new social trend, social contagion that's just latched on, and I would say in the last decade, probably since 2015, but it's ramped up really badly. So this doctor, Sandie Peggie, having had 30 years in the medical profession, all of this could be brought down. We don't want this to be her defining moment. You know what I mean? If this ends up in a sort of a negative way, we don't want this, to detract from all the hard work that she's done in the medical field. This is the thing. We're sort of distilling her 30-year career down to this one thing, which is absolutely correct in saying it's not a misgendering. She's called him out for what it is. But people of a certain age know for certain that this is a social contagion. They know for certain that it's a new fad. And only the people that are maybe 30 years or younger, 20 or younger, are sort of embroiled in this, because this is all that they know. But people that have been round the block, so to speak, people of a certain age, know that this is just a lot of crap. So she'll have seen all of this, in 30 years in the NHS. Probably never once a man has walked into her changing room. And yet, in the last, couple of years, now it's starting to happen. How is this, it boggles my brain, Ian, as to how this, can be sort of ratified by NHS Fife. It makes no sense, but again, it's what you're talking about, DEI and inclusion and all that stuff, and the gender identity stuff that was put through the legal system. But let's have some closing remarks from yourself before I sort of take it bigger picture. And once again, we'll thank you for just appearing on. Never spoke to you in my life, but I'm enjoying the conversation, Ian. But let's have, if you were to sort of summarize this whole case, and if you were to impart any wisdom, what would it be?
My partner's a GP, and my stepdaughter, she was really worried that my dialogue would turn it into an anti-trans, and which I really didn't want to show Theodore any respect at all. Anyone who's going to come into a room and just say plain nonsense, it's a form of bullying. If he's saying, I want you to use these pronouns, well, you can stick the pronouns up your backside, But the abiding thing that I wanted to do, Sandie Peggie has shown the power that a single voice can have in standing up to what is an embarrassment for Niall. I'm sure if you found yourself having a few bevies, you went into the female toilets, Jesus, you realise that you would be shot out of there because you'd be so embarrassed of what you'd done. Decent people and decent men do not do this. Decent men are here to support women, and the more people we can get to speak up, to use platforms such as yours. Wouldn't it be nice on your next show if someone who hardly even knows how to get the computer working, but wants to come on, you know, inexperienced and lacking confidence, but to get their point over about what they feel about the Sandie Peggie and what it means to them, what how they're inspired, because it's I do say what is so positive. Let's take the positives about this. Is that Theodore has made himself look an abject tool. He's gone into a court, and for me, his career as a doctor has to be really in doubt without some serious retraining. But let's look at the positives. Let's look at what it's done for the women's movement, how women are mobilizing in numbers and in groups and in forums, as they have done previously. But this is the moment I really do feel that, I mean, July, it's almost like a cliffhanger. Do you remember? I don't know, Niall, your sort of age. I don't know if you ever watched Dallas, when everyone was waiting to see who shot JR. It was a real cliffhanger. I tell you what, most people who have got no time for tribunals, no time for sitting there and reading transcripts and learning about all these odd words, people are now engaging with the law and the tribunals, what things mean, what are the practical effects on them, and what rights do they have? And I think that is the abiding thing that I wanted to leave, that, you know, for the women who are going to speak out, the women, I would also say, because I read Nicole's Twitter, and she, or X or whatever it is, she referred to the many fake colleagues of her mum who have stayed silent. Now, I would say to all her colleagues, the past is the past, but you have an opportunity to now say to Sandie Peggie, Sandie, we let you down. We didn't speak up when we should, but we too weren't comfortable with it. Now, they will have the protections in law of whistleblowers. They will have the protection of the tribunal if they were to all countersign a document, because he's gone in bold as brass into the tribunal and said she was the only person who was uncomfortable with it.
Exactly.
Do you believe that, Niall?
No, I've got not. No, again, it's this. This Dr. Upton's got everyone walking on eggshells. They must use the correct pronouns. They must use the correct language. That, you know, and of course, as soon as Dr. Upton walks around the corner and he's not there anymore, they'll all just go back to normal. You know, I mean, this is the thing. They'll all be. We can beat around the bush as much as we want, but this guy is he's causing women to be uncomfortable. Yeah. Whether they want to own up to the fact or not, I believe that, of course, it can't just be Sandie that has been uncomfortable with this. It can't be. And just look at what's happened. Just look at what's happened. Sandie Peggie, and this crowdfunder. It's just, let's show Sandie some love and support. Imagine when this is over, she can treat herself to someone to love. Well, she's going to treat herself to £36,000.
She's not, though, Niall. Let's just come in on this. I credit Sandie with more integrity. This isn't about compensation.
No, I agree with you. I've taken it the wrong way. What I'm saying is there's an overwhelming response from the public on people who are standing up against it. Irrespective of the money or the compensation, irrespective of any of that, they're getting adoration from the public for standing up and saying, no, the Emperor's hasn't got any clothes on. I was, wrong to bring up the fact that there's money involved, because again, it's not about money as well. It's not about adoration. It's just about doing what's correct and what's right. I
100% agree. I mean, look, Sandie is a working class woman, and a proud working class woman, and that is a life-changing sum of money. can you imagine? I mean, it's just wonderful. She has said that she is going to donate that sum to charity. And when this, the conduct hearing for Friday has been rescheduled at Sandie's request now. Maybe it's because of the sad loss of her father or the duress, etc. But I wanted to write to Sandie, as many of us did, and said, look, 30 grand to charity is lovely. Keep some of that money for yourself. You shouldn't be worrying. That's why I, along with many other people, donated to that crowdfunder, because the bills, the money, providing for a family, I don't want her to worry about that at this time, and it's just, as I said, let's leave it on positives and not about men imposing themselves. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a beautiful thing to see so many people uniting, supporting a woman that I will never meet. You're more likely to on the program, Niall. Everyone's coming together. People increasingly speaking out. It's just glorious to see. Yeah. And this is, I wanted to just, my final comment, because as you're probably aware, I could speak all night on this. I'm so passionate about it. But Naomi Cunningham, right? Naomi Cunningham was criticised for not saying this or not saying that.
Niall, just to clarify who that is for people.
Naomi Cunningham is the KC, the lawyer for Sandie Peggie. What she has very, very deftly done, right? If that tribunal had been resolved after the end of 10 days and we would be waiting for the judgment, but it's so strategic and clever as how things have panned out, because now we have this wealth of support, people hungry for information to learn more, and it's going to spread out over March, April, May, June, July. The Employment Tribunal, I don't know if you're aware now, did you go on the live feed for the Employment Tribunal?
I was reading, I was reading Boswell today's summaries. I was reading the tribunal tweets minute by minute as they were coming out. I mean, it's just surreal to think that all this is going through the tribunals, but I was right up to date with it.
Yeah, because I was fortunate to get remote access. Now, even though it absolutely destroyed me that the access was rescinded and it was restricted to only tribunal tweets and people with a qualified journalistic qualification. But look, hundreds of people are showing interest.
Okay,
the courts, they cannot cope. In America, so, for example, Brian Koberger, who's accused of the murder of 4 university students in Idaho. What it was, his trial will be streamed live on YouTube. That's open and transparent justice.
Yes.
Because there are many women out there who are going to be absolutely inspired by the example of what other women are doing. And how articulate and knowledgeable women are, and when they read and they understand law, to see how the law is being twisted, it's being used against them. Because I don't know if you're aware now, there is no right for a transvestite male to enter a changing room and to say he's a biological female. It's a complete fallacy.
Yeah.
He has when he asserted his right to say, I have the same, as much right as you do to be here, he was talking baloney. What is a male doing in a female changing room on a one-on-one situation? Would Sandie have felt more comfortable if she had a work colleague next to her for support. No, it's a male. And unfortunately, I, as a man, have to understand that why women are threatened by men because of incidents of abuse, violence, sexual violence, the predatory nature. And it's, you know, it's something that we as men have got to acknowledge and have to understand that this is why these social safeguards are in place. In legal terms, what the transgender movement or the transvestite movement are doing is circumventing societal safeguards that have been in place for hundreds and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Now, there is another tribunal case that's going to be taking place, and this has got the added twist to it. It's a woman. It's Faye Russell Caldicott is a pseudonym. She's a Muslim woman. Who was in a similar situation with a male using and she's crowdfunded. Her case is going to be given a lot of exposure by this. But no, look, I probably used unfairly the example. If a guy went into a female toilets in Glasgow, what would happen to him?
Exactly. It wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just imagine it in Saudi Arabia. Right.
Well, they end up in jail. Like, I mean, this is the thing. Like, it's different cultures, of course, are more firm on this. It feels like this transgender ideology is only sort of targeted at like Western cultures to do.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's all by design. But I just wanted to thank you for being here, Ian. I mean, you've been a sort of a wealth of knowledge about this. You're bringing things into the conversation that I previously hadn't even been aware of. And I just want to thank you for being here.
No, thank you.
No, it's a pleasure, Ian. And I'm glad I took the gamble. I'm glad I rolled the dice on you today. This conversation wouldn't have happened just unless I put a tweet out. I didn't know you prior to this, but let's follow each other. I'll keep up with your good work, and
and
we'll finish with this one. What do you think the outcome will be? Just before you go,
the outcome, I believe,
the outcome of this tribunal.
The outcome will be that Sandie Peggie had the right to assert her right as a woman to ask Theodore in women's clothes to leave. Okay. He's obviously used you were associated with me with someone like Isla Bryson and you brought up my chromosomes and, it was devastating, and I was horrified.
Yeah. The victim. Yeah, of course.
Remember what he said? The entitled twerp said, I've never been spoken to that in my life. Well, he hasn't lived, has he?
Exactly.
I mean, if that's the worst he's ever been. So I'm very positive that the tribunal would direct themselves properly, but it's the wider ramifications. It's outside of the tribunal. What I'm seeing is this domino effect, this beautiful sweeping effect that's rippling. People are crapping themselves because they haven't been doing their jobs, right? And that's I hate to say, in such devastating circumstances for Sandie and so on, I'm excited for women. This is going to be the start of where the transgender community, which, I watched your clip from earlier, 4 or 5 years ago, that the transgender community, that I don't like to use the word enough is enough, but the laws will be changed primarily to protect women.
Yeah.
And to allow women to object without fear of losing their jobs. without fear of vilification or being labelled a transphobe. You know, this rubbish about transphobe. Who fears? No one fears
No.
a man in women's clothes except those who impose on women's spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But look, you've been brilliant, and I wish you the best for the rest of the show, and I'll stay listening in.
That's perfect, Ian. Thank you ever so much for coming on.
Yeah,
that's Ian. What I'll do is I'll put your handle up for people to follow you, okay?
Okay, thanks very much.
We'll wave goodbye to Ian, and what I'll do is I'll get him to, in fact, what I'll do is I'll just get his Twitter handle. Copy pasta, as we say in the business. And we will change this. And this is his Twitter handle, Passionate Pete. So if you want to follow him, again, just out the blue, we've got in touch and he's come on the show. And he spoke wonderfully. But I mean, I sort of wanted to bring it back to, you know, not being selfish here, but I wanted to bring it back to, well, it's the Niall Fraser show after all, but I wanted to bring it back to the sort of overarching picture here. And I wanted to go through some more of these, the political fallouts, why this is happening, and, you know, just speak bigger picture here. When Ian mentioned, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it got me thinking that this, you know, originally the title wasn't going to be Sandie Breaks the Spell. It wasn't going to be Sandie Breaks the Spell. It was going to be Sandie Breaks the Matrix. Sandie exits the Truman Show. Sandie, you know, destroys the fabric of reality. Whatever sort of superlatives you want to say. This is what, you know, it should have been more like Sandie Breaks the Matrix. Because, again, my sort of political philosophy, having focused on this gender ideology for so long, is that this is the most barefaced lie, the most obvious lie, the most destructive lie for humanity, for society, is this fiction that a person can change sex and go back and forth. And in order to fix society, we have to in order to fix society, we have to defeat this lie. You know, I ran on this very sentiment in the 2021, in the by-election in Rutherglen. It wasn't 2021, but I ran on this very, very thing where we had to break this societal spell that this transgender ideology has on our society. And this is what happens when you further a society of delusion, of complete fiction. You've got clearly, and you know, I don't police my words here. This is clearly a mentally ill man who just happens to be a doctor. What I would say is maybe he's prescribing himself things. Clearly mentally ill, but more to the point, let's look to the left. This is his wife. She looks like she's, you know, she's a hostage here. Look at her. I think it's such a blank stare. You know, the lights in her eyes have died. There's something quite weird about this image. Everyone else seems, I mean, everyone seems like either they're up for it, either they're clearly embroiled in a transgender ideology. But his wife looks like she's been forced into this. His wife looks like, again, she's just been released hostage, or she is a hostage in this whole affair. I mean, imagine you get married. We'll see if we can find the bookmark for it, because KGK said it the best. Let me see if I can find it. You know, I've got so many bookmarks to go through the night. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. But it is worth finding because it's absolutely brilliant. Here we go. Here we go. If I can just bring it up. Let's make it big. Here we go. Here we go. Let's add this to the stage. And again, it's sort of right to point out the battle of the crowdfunders, as I was going to call it. You know, this is, if ever we're looking at public sentiment, this is it. You've got $4,000 raised by the deviant trans activists, and you've got 36 grand raised by normal common sense thinkers that think that women shouldn't have to deal with men in their changing rooms. Again, it's so surreal that we're ended up in a tribunal about this, but it's the battle of the it's a battle of the crowdfunders. But let's look at KJK. I'll get my face off the screen for this one. This is, it's crazy to think, but KJK, you know, if you're not familiar with Kelly J. Keane, at Posey Parker, I've been to loads of their Let Women Speak events. So these have been going on for the last 4 or 5 years, these events. You know, she's been right around the world doing these Let Women Speak events. And what happens is they just let women speak. And, you know, funnily enough, she is very, very versed in all this fetishism, all this, you know, weirdness, because she's having to embrace it every day. She has to, you know, when you're in the trenches as deep as she is, she knows exactly what she's talking about. But listen to what she says about Upton's wife. They all want to be their mothers or their wife. And there's talking, of course, about this transgender person, this Dr. Upton. There's clearly a mental illness in here. And I don't care what you want to call it. This is clearly a displayed mental illness. Clearly displayed mental illness. They all want to be their mothers or their wife. So, dear Mrs. Upton being this woman on the left here, this woman who looks like she's a hostage. Dear Mrs. Upton, I suspect your husband started with a little makeup at home. That made you uncomfortable, but you thought it would go no further. He copies your style, your mannerisms, even your walk. He softens his voice and talks about himself, his body and his clothing all the time. You know he's envious of you, and you've had to make yourself very small so you don't hurt his feelings. You know this is really narcissistic control, but it's hard to say out loud. In the first few months since he told you about his fetish, he would obliterate every boundary you held until you find yourself walking next to him into court after he sexually assaulted women at work. It's not too late to leave. Get your ducks in a row and get out. That is the best advice. The best advice that you could give to this woman here on the left. The best advice, please. I mean, look at her. She's already a hostage. It looks like she's a hostage. Clearly, she wants to escape this situation. She does not want to be walking hand in hand with this guy into court. Clearly, obviously. And you know, if you just look at them as well, he has copied her style. It's just so weird. But this is why I keep bringing it back to this fetishist stuff. This is what it is. And I think when you're imposing yourself in a female changing room as a guy, there's clearly something mentally wrong there. And then you're refusing to leave. That is menacing behaviour. Don't care if you're dressed like a woman or not. It's menacing behaviour. But look at this. He would obliterate every boundary you held until you find yourself walking next to him into court after he sexually assaulted women at work. And this, you know, I can feel that this is probably the case for a lot of these trans activists couples. You know, it started off very normal. And then slowly but surely the boundaries get eroded. They get eroded and eroded and eroded to the point where, what, like she's saying, you're walking hand by hand right next to him into court after he's sexually, you know, it's just I mean, it's unbelievable. But let's look down a bit, because this is where the real juice is. This is it here. Who's wearing the little star earrings now? We'll bring this up. This is Theodore Upton. This is Dr. Upton on his wedding day, and that's the woman in question. This is the happy couple. It's like a before and after. So something very, very strange about this all. And clearly this man, you know, I just keep saying it, but he's got a mental illness. This guy needs like proper psychiatric help. But this is the happy couple. And look at the earrings that she's wearing. She's wearing these wee star earrings on her wedding day. Oh, how beautiful they are. Oh, who's wearing them now? Exactly what KJK said. They're copying, they want to be their wife. They want to be their mum. There's something not quite right about this. Don't you see? I feel sick about this. I feel absolutely sick. I feel sick on Scotland's behalf for having to undergo such mental, it's mental retardation through the course. That's what it is. And, you know, everyone, I mean, I'm quite brutal in the way I talk, but, you know, we've got lawyers, we've got legal eagles, even people like Ian. Very, very succinct in the way they talk, very factual. But when you boil it down, it's absolutely scary that this has got to this point in time. And we've spent almost an hour and a half talking about this. We've not even finished the notes. We've not even finished the notes on this. I mean, crikey. Yeah, and I said it before, but NHS 5 have they've been pulled into this void, this transgender ideology void. The NHS 5 have been absorbed by this black hole of transgender ideology. They're now in its gravitational pull and can't escape. That's what's happening with NHS 5, and they will go down. They're in the pool. You can't escape the black hole's gravity. They're gone. They're beyond the event horizon. It's like Interstellar over here in Scotland. They're absolutely finished. And NHS 5, as if they've got the money to spend on paying Sandie Peggie out, which inevitably they're going to have to do. Let's just be honest. They're going to have to pay Sandie Peggie out. You can't legislate and say, no, you will have to change next to the men. I mean, if you wouldn't laugh, you would cry. But, you know, it's, again, I'm I see Ian's still listening here, right? I can afford to laugh about it because I'm a man. And this is the sort of dark undercurrent to this. And it maybe next week we just keep following the story up with women who are embroiled in this. But I can afford to laugh at this. But this is absolutely not a laughing matter to women. Is it? It's it's sickening. It's menacing. It's, you know, you name it. It's an imposition on women that they do not want. It's an imposition on women that frightens them, that makes them uncomfortable. And, you know, I can sit and laugh about it all one for the craziness of it all. But it's not me that has to put up with it. It's the women. It's the most vulnerable in our society that have to put up with this clearly mentally ill men that are trying to invade their spaces. And I'm glad that Ian's picked me up on that because, you know, it gives you a sort of a better perspective at it. But clearly, you know, as I laugh at it, this is no laughing matter for women. You know, and, you know, it breaks my heart to think that maybe in the past I've been belittling it. And believe I'm not been belittling it, you know, the I haven't been belittling what women face. I've been sort of belittling the almost like the societal decline. It's like you're sat on the Titanic as it's sinking, and you think, fuck it, I'm just going to get the violin out and laugh at it all. That's what it feels like. Honestly, but the impact that it has on women, it's them that have to jump on the lifeboats and escape. So, you're going to get a rare apology from Niall tonight, ladies and gentlemen. A rare apology. I'm sorry to laugh at this. I really am. But, I can point fun at this, just how crazy this whole situation is. But again, if you're women and you're listening to this, make no, don't paint me out to be like I'm some sort of heartless monster. No, of course, I just feel that, I could never truly understand what it's like as a woman for a guy just to walk into your changing room and then refuse to leave and say, no, I belong here. I'm laughing again, but it's so silly, but it's so menacing. It's so, dread inducing. And this is why Sandie Peggie is going to get paid out. This is why Sandie Peggie is going to get, I really do hope she doesn't need to work for the rest of her life. I mean, she's already had a fantastic career, 30 years in the NHS. She deserves not to work another day in her life after a shift like that. But then to sort of distill her working career, her nursing career, down to this one salient moment in time where she said, go and get out my changing room. I'm not going to, and we'll go into the transcript. But what I believe is that she just refused to get changed. She stood outside the room and waited until he was changed. And then when he was finished, she went back in and changed. So really, and what this Dr. Upton's angry that what, I mean, surely you go into the changing room just to get changed as quickly as possible, right? I mean, let's be honest. The function of a changing room is to get changed. It's not a social setting. It's not it's not what I can imagine Dr. Beth Upton's image of this women's changing room is. Pillow fights and he can't even accept the fact that she doesn't want to change near him in the same room. She exits the room, she stands outside, she waits until he's finished, then she goes and gets changed. He takes umbrage to that fact. He feels victimized that he doesn't get to see her change. He feels victimized that he doesn't get to stand next to her as they're changing. I mean, what sort of mental illness is this? What sort of mental illness is this? And let's go back to KJK's advice. The women on the left, honestly, hit the ejector seat. Hit the big red button. Escape while you can. Honestly. I mean, just this image, honestly, it paints 1,000 words. And what an image it is. Ian Masterton there. What a great picture. If you were to sum up Scotland's internalised hatred of itself, this would be the image that you might use. I've spent over an hour and a half talking about this, but I mean, I did say the grunt of the show I was going to talk about it, but this is Sandie Peggie breaking the spell. This is the Sandie Peggie breaking the matrix. It is the biggest story of today. It's not even the biggest story. It'll be the biggest story in Scotland for the next few months. Just because it sets fire to, it's like Icarus is flying too close to the sun. It's like hitting the ceiling. It's like, I'm trying to think. It's like Truman when he's on the boat, and I imagine the Truman Show. I'm sure you've all seen it, and it's my favorite film of all time, the Truman Show. There's something about it that rings true in our lives. The Truman Show. If you've never seen it, watch it. Get it watched right now. Shut the show down. You know, if you've not seen the Truman Show now, cut the broadcast and go and watch it. You'd have a better time watching that than you would be watching me. So if you've never seen the Truman Show, cut the broadcast and get it on right now. It's the best film gone, and it is. It's like a, it really does tell society the way it is. But if you can imagine, if you have seen the Truman Show, Sandie Peggie is Truman Burbank, and he's trying to escape this societal delusion, this the fact that it's all a setup. Sandie's on the boat trying to get to the edge of the world to escape. It's the transgender ideology that are creating the waves and try to keep her in this embrace of this island, this fiction. That's what's happening here. In Scotland, you know, the political reverberations are happening as we speak. You know, I mean, everybody's going to jump on this story. You'll see the Scottish Tories be all over this story because they're the only ones that can credibly comment on it. The Scottish Tories are the only ones who can credibly combat this fakery because everyone else at the time went along with it. The SNP, the Greens, the Labour, they all went along with this legal bullshit. Oh, of course, just, you know, here you go. There's a gender self-ID. I couldn't give a flying fuck what a bit of paper says. You're not a woman, Dr. Upton. And as Ian says, you know, you not even got a gender recognition certificate. But even then, it's a bit paper. A bit paper does not make a man. A bit paper does not make a woman. And this is what we've reduced to our society. It's absolutely insane. But you know, Sandie Peggie is Truman Burbank, and she's almost at the exit, ladies and gentlemen. She's almost there. She's almost there, but she's not even fighting on her own behalf. The thing is, this is Truman and Sandie represent the bigger picture. They represent society as a whole. Don't you see? She needs to be able to break through and exit. And if she doesn't, it affects society as a whole. If Truman can't escape, none of us can escape. That's why we see things like this. Because people just know the gravity of the situation. They know how serious this is. They know how important this moment in time is for Scotland. For women. I mean, for the sanity of all people in Scotland, this moment is absolutely giant. You know, they'll look back, see in 100 years' time or whatever, they'll look back at this and they'll think, oh, this is the landmark case that brought it down. Or the Isle of Bryson, or, you know, they'll all be sort of, this will make history, ladies and gentlemen, this moment in time. The fact that we've been led down this dark path, and then the people that led us back out of it. And Sandie Peggie is one of these people. And the people who are supporting Sandie Peggie, and the people who are pushing her, our lawyer, all of these people are instrumental in escaping the Matrix. And it is sort of, you know, I don't really, it's maybe a hammy comparison here, but this is sort of, it's very similar to the Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency. And you're like, how can Niall possibly crowbar this Sandie Peggie into the Doge? Well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Sandie Peggie is, it's similar to the Doge because it's exposing all the money that's spent on this DEI, all the money that's spent on the gender inclusivity stuff. You know, all the legal let's check our notes here. NHS Fife's, code of conduct, things like this. This is what the sort of this is exposing here. It's exposing more, like just how infected our institutions are with this type of thing. And of course, this is only one aspect of the Doge, but it's a major aspect, and it's got real societal implications. This, if Sandie Peggie is allowed, know if she's allowed to make it through, if she makes it to the exit, if she can break through that barrier, then she's not done it for herself. She's the, what's the word? She's all of us here that's battling back against this fakery. Anyway, I hope you liked the sort of analogy here. I really do hope you liked it. But I can't stress the importance of this case. It's so utterly important. I've spent almost 2 hours, almost the whole grunt of the show on this. I'm going to have to fire into that. Everything else is just getting absolutely obliterated. Scotland's addiction industry, we'll talk about that now. But again, if you're a new viewer, if you're one of the women that have come in specifically to hear me talk about this case, honestly, please do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have a female's perspective on this. We brought Ian on, and he was fantastic, granted, but it would be better to hear from one person, 2 people, whatever it is, from For Women Scotland, Women Won't Waste, anyone involved in this case. And maybe you agree with me about the whole gravity of the situation. What other health boards have been swallowed up by the gender identity black hole? I suspect all of them, but this has got real life implications right across Scotland. And we're going to, I think we've got some clips, final clips, and then we'll bash on to our addiction industry story. And again, thank you for the viewership, ladies and gentlemen. Almost 800. That's fantastic. So we'll watch some of these final videos. We'll share this tab. We'll get John Swinney's take. If ever there was a person that we didn't want to take, it's John Swinney. But again, let's listen to what this absolute loser's saying.
NHS Fife has been in the news because of this tribunal it's been taken to by one of its nurses, Sandie Peggie. We've spoken about the Equality Act before, your belief that institutions should abide by the law when it comes to single-sex spaces. Why do you think NHS Fife seems to have found itself in this situation where it has not supplied a single-sex space for female nurses?
I'm not going to comment on a detailed employment tribunal that is currently underway. I think the legal position is crystal clear that public organisations have an obligation to apply the principles that are involved in the organisation of single-sex spaces where they consider those to be appropriately undertaken. Obviously, those issues are material to the case that is being considered by the Employment Tribunal, and I don't intend to comment in detail on a process that is
NHS Fife say they're following guidance from the Scottish Government around these issues. Do you think that the Scottish Government needs to rewrite that guidance if that's the case?
I think the information that's available to me is pretty clear in this on this point, that there is a legal provision that enables there to be single-sex spaces if that is judged to be appropriate to be required, and the guidance supports that particular position. So it's for individual public bodies and employers to make a judgment about what the arrangement should be in any particular facility in honouring that in principle commitment.
It's just embarrassing to have this man as First Minister. It really is. It is embarrassing on such a grand scale. It really is. It's embarrassing. I can't but say, I mean, this is the thing with NHS Fife and this gender crap as well. Overall, all of it, it's just ultra embarrassing that we as Scots who invented basically everything, that brought the Enlightenment to the world, is now darkening the whole world with this embarrassment. Why? How? NHS Fife surely are embarrassment, embarrassed into a coma at this point. Is it possible to die from embarrassment? That's the word that's sort of that encapsulated it all for me. It's embarrassing. And we can't get a First Minister, a leader, who's forthright. It has to, twinkle toes, skip around words, as if it's not completely obvious to everyone with eyes and ears. Anyone that's got a functioning brain, that we can't have men going into women's changing rooms. Come on to fuck. Come on to fuck, John. Honestly, just grow up. And we've got the clip of John. He was asked back in the election campaign. Full on John, as we call him now. Full blown John, as a self-styled nickname. Full blown John. But they've got this clip of him during the election campaign on the battle bus. Let's watch this.
First Minister, how many genders are there?
Well, I think there'll be quite a debate about that, Nicky. I think there are, but certainly from
what do you think?
My point of view, I recognise that. Well, I think in this debate, a woman is an adult born as a female, and they're also transgender women.
So, how many genders are there?
Well, I think people will debate and discuss that. From my point of view, there's the male and the female gender.
It's ultra embarrassing. I mean, it gets there in the end, but it has to skirt around everything. There's quite a bit of debate about that. Quite a bit of debate. Yeah, for millennia, there's not been a debate, but for the last 7, 8, 9 years, this toxic fakery has imposed itself on our political class, on all our institutions. So it has to skirt around. There's quite a bit of debate about that. It's just embarrassing. But there's another clip here and we'll go to that. What's the next video?
But you as First Minister, is it your view? Do you judge that nurses or employees anywhere that need to get changed into and out of their workloads should be able to do it in a single-sex space?
Well, that's for individual employers to delineate.
It's for individual employers to delineate. Can you believe this guy? It's so embarrassing. Again, full-blown John, full-on John, full embarrassment John, giving us full-blown beamers. That's what it is. It's embarrassing. It's for individual employers to delineate that women are entitled to change in their own separate space. Come on, John.
The arrangements that they have in place, but they have to be mindful of the guidance that is in place, which provides for single-sex spaces to be deployed where that is appropriate for it to be done. So that's the legal obligation, and I would expect all public authorities to operate within that.
I couldn't give a flying toss about the legal obligation here. It's obvious, it's plain as day that women are entitled to their own space to change without the imposition of men jumping in and just refusing to leave. I mean, it's actually crazy. We've got some comments. We'll read some comments. This is happening so they are not seen as imposing themselves on a culture that sees women as slaves, and there's no room for it in democracy. We're not democratic if women do not have their rights. Don't trust anyone that starts the sentence with "I think" when it's simple to answer. Exactly. Spot on. RTK Slot Racing Club. That sounds interesting. Sounds very interesting. Is that like the race nights at the bowling clubs? Exactly. It's how many genders are there? 2. Finished. Next question. No, I think there's no bit of debate about it. So let's sort of recap some of the notes before we go, because we've criminally underused Boswell today's notes. But I did say we didn't want to overuse it, but I've criminally underused it. It's actually shocking. So we're getting some backgrounds of the key figures here, right? Nurse practitioner, Sandie Peggie, 30 years service. She joined in 1994. She was incident on Christmas Eve. Peggie encountered Dr. Upton in the women's changing room, feeling that a male-bodied person was in what should be a female-only space. She objected, and of course, this has resulted in this whole thing. Dr. Beth Upton is a transgender woman. I just refuse to. Honestly, it's not a transgender woman. He is a mentally ill man. 29 years of age. Began the gender transition around 2022. So we're talking 3 years ago. Started working at Victoria's A&E department in 23. Lives as a woman, so-called. However, Peggie and her supporters pointedly refer to Dr. Upton as he, reflecting the view Dr. Upton as male-bodied. It's, this male-bodied stuff. I mean, it's just it's forced people into such language games. The changing room dispute, we all know about that. NHS Fife, the respondent and employer. It's the Regional Health Board for Fife, Scotland, which runs Victoria Hospital, Peggie and Upton's workplace. Among other facilities, as an employer, NHS Fife is responsible for staff policies and upholding workplace standards of quality and conduct. It's directly named in Peggie's legal action and has been managing the parallel internal investigation. So they have got a trans inclusion policy. NHS Fife, like many NHS boards, follow national guidelines that allow transgender staff to use single-sex spaces, restrooms, changing rooms that align with their gender identity. Well, this is the bone of contention here. The actual inclusion policy itself needs to be scrapped. Legal manoeuvres. This will be interesting. Ahead of the tribunal, NHS Fife attempted to minimise publicity and control the narrative of this case. In late 2024, the Health Board applied for a Rule 50 order to anonymise the proceedings. Oh, did they? So NHS Fife didn't want this going anywhere. Of course they didn't. Effectively seeking a private, secret tribunal where neither Peggie or Upton would be named publicly. They argued that this was to protect those involved. Peggie opposed this, wanting the matter to be heard openly, as she should. And ultimately, the attempt at secrecy was rejected by the tribunal. This is all news to me, that the NHS tried to shield this. I mean, it's pretty obvious that they would try to shield this, but we've got it there in black and white. They applied for a Rule 50 order to anonymise the proceedings. They did not want this getting out. They did not want to get this out. Let's go into the other legal manoeuvres. In January 25, NHS Fife Counsel Jane Russell Casey made an unusual bid to the tribunal judge to compel Peggie and her lawyers to stop misgendering Dr. Upton during the proceedings. They asked for an order forcing Peggie's side to use either female pronouns or neutral terms when referring to Upton. Russell argued that allowing Peggie to call Upton he in open court amounted to state-sanctioned harassment. What a big joke this is. And Dr. Upton and caused her client pain. Peggie's barrister countered that Peggie's belief that Upton is male is central to her case. It isn't a belief. that he's male, and that forcing her to speak contrary to that belief would be an unjust interference in her freedom of expression. See, the legal egos are all over this. Honestly, you just hate to be a lawyer involved in this. It's just crazy stuff. Ongoing disciplinary action in parallel to the tribunal. NHS Fife pressed forward with an internal process. By mid-February 25, despite the tribunal still unresolved, the board scheduled a disciplinary hearing accusing Peggie of misconduct, primarily for misgendering Dr. Upton and for allegedly failing to work cooperatively with her. The board's stance is that Peggie's behaviour potentially breached their code of conduct and equality, warranting possible termination. This move had been controversial, even outside. Experts have remarked it's extraordinary for NHS Fife to be pushing for Peggie's dismissal while the tribunal is ongoing, essentially prejudging the very issue under dispute. Absolutely. Evidence and bias concerns. There are hints that NHS Fife's internal investigation hasn't been entirely even-handed. Of course it hasn't. NHS Fife will be attempting to use every manoeuvre. They'll be attempting to cloak it in secrecy. They'll be trying every single underhanded tactic they could possibly muster in order to kill this off, to basically destroy Sandie Peggie's reputation in her career. Because it's so, again, the word I'm going to use is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Normal, everyday people can't comprehend the fact that an NHS board is mandating with their their transgender inclusion policy, they're mandating the fact that women have to put up with men changing alongside them. Just everyday people can't comprehend that at all. That's why all this is ultra embarrassing to them, because they know the truth themselves. It's reported that another staff witness contradicted Dr. Upton's account. One of the alleged patient safety incidents, saying that particular scenario did not occur as Upton described. Despite this, NHS panel still kept the allegation on the charge sheet as if it was valid. There should be prosecutions here on the other side for trying to destroy this person. Furthermore, during the investigation, Peggie apparently referred to Dr. Upton as a man when talking to HR, and the hospital considered that a fresh act of misgendering misconduct to discipline her. To Peggie's supporters, this all reinforces a view that NHS Fife is more interested in enforcing ideological conformity than in finding a fair solution. From the board's perspective, however, they have a duty to protect the transgender employee from hostile work environment, hence treating intentional misgendering as a serious offence. The public position. Officially, NHS Fife have been tight-lipped due to the ongoing legal proceedings. A spokesperson said the board is committed to ensuring safe and inclusive workplace for all, and therefore cannot comment further on the case. The irony of the statement is not lost on Peggie's allies, as they ask how inclusive the environment truly is, as if a woman who asserts her need for single-sex privacy is ostracised and threatened with firing. In summary, the NHS Fife role has been largely to back Dr. Upton and the principle of trans inclusion, even if it means disciplining a long-time employee like Peggie. Critics accuse the board of failing to support female staff and overreaching by policing Peggie's speech. The board and its representatives, on the other hand, emphasise their duty of care to transgender staff and maintaining a workplace free of what they view as harassment and discrimination. So, I mean, these notes are absolutely fantastic. And thank you again, Boswell, today for providing them. I'm not going to use all that much. We might use them another day, actually. I think that this case could go multiple days or multiple shows. And we're already 2 hours into a live stream here. And this is the only case we've covered. Just absolutely disturbing amount of time we're wasting on it. Not wasting. A disturbing amount of time that we could actually zoom in on this case, talk about, you know, all the moving parts to this, and just to sort of to bask in the sheer embarrassment of it all. It's embarrassing for everyone involved, minus Peggie. You know, NHS, you know, going back to the Truman Show analogy, Peggie is Truman and she's trying to escape, and it's NHS Fife that's trying to keep her there. Right. So we'll go on to this story another day. Let's bring me back. Let's bring you will know if I've realised that I was doing a show. I was just a voice in the background there, and my beard is all over the place, honestly. But we're going to move on to our next segment, and it's Scotland's addiction industry. Scotland's addiction industry. And if you've just came to hear me talk about the Sandie Peggie case, please do stay with me just for the next 10 minutes, okay? Because, you know, there's a lot of important things happening in Scotland. And this Scotland's problem with addiction is grave. Grave, to say the least. And, you know, it's been absolutely heartbreaking to me over the last couple of weeks. I've been visiting the safe consumption room and the local area that surrounds the safe consumption room the last 2 weeks gone. And it's just, it's jaw-dropping, the level of deprivation, the level of, like, when you look at the drug deaths that happen in Scotland, when you see the headline figures, 1,200, 1,180, I think 1,137 sticks in my brain. One of the years, there was 1,100, I think it was 37 deaths to drugs. That's not including suicides. And I was at a recovery walk in Perth, and we threw 1,100, there was 1,130 odds roses that we threw in the River Tay to represent the people that have been lost to addiction. But you think, see, you don't know the scale of it, ladies. You honestly don't know the scale of it. And I'm just beginning to learn the scale of it, and it's eye-watering, it's jaw-dropping, it's frightening. But so many people in our society, in Scotland, are walking the tightrope every day. And a lot of them are falling off. Right, I'll play. I've got a video on this. We shot a video, but again, it was really horrible. It was horrible filming it. It was horrible seeing addicts destroy themselves. But I'll play the video now. But please do bear with me for the next 10-15 minutes. You need to see this. You need to see this.
My name is Colin McGowan. I'm a trustee of the children's charity Blameless. Our charity was formed in 2012 to help children and their families who live in the shadow of their loved one's addiction. Today I'm standing outside the Thistle Safe Drug Consumption Facility located at Hunter Street in Carlton, Glasgow, 100 yards from the Morrison Supermarket car park. In fact, it's just over that wall. The questions that are being asked: will this safe consumption facility make any real difference to the drug deaths in Scotland? No one knows. I suppose time will tell. I certainly hope so. Although, what difference will truly justify the £7 million expenditure with 3 years? And that £7 million is only to run the facility. There's a capital spend of another £5 million. It is most certainly a state-of-the-art facility, beautifully designed, very well staffed, lovely garden with patio that offers the people using the facility a smoking area, easily accessible from the complimentary coffee and tea lounge. Shower facilities are also available, and the facility certainly gives warmth and comfort to those that go there to inject their drugs. The added bonus is no fear of criminal conviction, because in this postcode it's okay to have and inject illegally purchased heroin or cocaine. You'll also be given a sterile single-use kit containing a syringe, needle, sterile spoon and alcohol wipe, supplied by Orion Medical Supplies Limited, with clearly marked on the front of the single-use kit, dispose of your litter responsibly. When I went into the Thistle facility, that was last Saturday, I found the staff were very helpful and polite. It was really very, very well staffed. In all honesty, no one looked particularly busy. The facility was spotless and the grounds were absolutely immaculate. The beautiful giant oversized ornamental stone plant pot that stood at the entrance would not have looked out of place outside the Radisson Blue. So what am I doing here? Before I tell you why I'm here, I'm now going to move location. I'm going to move just 100 yards into the Morrison car park. For those that don't know Morrison's, it's a tremendously socially conscious company, and for years they have helped our charity Blameless and many other charities across Glasgow. And what's happening at the Morrison's car park is so very wrong. I would just like to point out, I do not live in Carlton, so this is not a not in my backyard rant. This is more a public health warning. And that's me going to move over to the other location now. Listen, I wasn't going to film this bit, so I'm just holding the mic. But you'll see, these were here last Saturday when we done the first film, and you can see they're actually lying in almost exactly the same bit with the spoons. Now there's Morrison's there, right. That's where the children are parking their cars and people's walking their dogs, and that's the Thistle Centre there. You know, I mean they're 100 yards apart. And can you get a close in these, please? Thanks. Right. These new houses behind us in Carlton that families digging into. See the area I'm going to go over to do the filming from? These new houses, the families will be actually even see not only just the drug users in this corner, they'll be able to see the needles from their windows. And this is brand new houses in Carlton. This isn't right. This is one of the kits, the Orion Medical Supply kits. This is a single-use kit to what's in it. I'll need to be very careful. Obviously, you've got the needle with the syringe. We've got the alcohol wipe in there somewhere. We've got a small spoon as well, obviously the small spoon, and you've got your absorbed acid, you know, for mixing your stuff. So it's a whole kit really. It's a single-use kit. There's your needles. This is what's discarded absolutely everywhere. Every single place you can see it. Right, now these are everywhere here, and I mean everywhere, and this is what I'm going to discuss next. This was an extra wee bit I wasn't going to do, but I got one of the kits off one of the boys there, so that's that just now. That lets you see what I'm discussing. Oh sorry, I dropped a piece. Here I am in the Morrison's car park, 100 yards from the gates of the Thistle Safe Consumption Room in Hunter Street in Carlton. This is where parents and grandparents come to shop, often with their children, right here. I was here last week. I was intending to make this video. I couldn't do it because I became too emotional. I turned 70 in May, and I have lived the experience of addiction. It just all became too much. So I'm back this week to give it another try. Last week I met with 5 addicts. 2 came with me for lunch into the Morrison's cafe, and they had used the consumption rooms. I thanked them for their time. As we were filming the horrendous state of the Morrison's car park with discarded syringes, needles, packages and everything I just showed you there, everywhere, about 15 minutes into filming, we had worked our way around to the far side of the car park, which is here just behind us. 2 lads had taken that we'd taken to lunch were in the bushes behind me, with a pipe sharing some crack cocaine sitting in large brown plastic bread baskets. They had informed me it was 0.2 of a gram of crack cocaine that they had just purchased locally for £20. The promotion of the Safe Consumption Rooms had brought one lad over for Darnley, the other lad was more local. So what am I saying? What is it this actual podcast is all about? You know, it's simple. Morrison's supermarkets are a huge employer in Carlton. Morrison's supermarkets pay hundreds of thousands of pounds in rates to the Glasgow City Council. The general public that live and shop here locally at Morrison's pay their council tax. This deprivation is unacceptable. So I'd like to invite the media to come down to Morrison's car park and also to go to behind St Luke's in Bain Street, just 400 yards away. St Luke's is a magnificent wedding and entertainment venue for the people of Carlton and the people of Glasgow. Again, we find more syringes, needles, Orion medical supply packaging, carefully discarded. Let me be absolutely clear in what I'm saying. We know the more drug users that come to an area, the more the drug dealers will send out their sales teams. You know, that's to that area. Supplying drugs is a business. Most politicians simply don't understand it's a business. The police services, we know, are stretched to the limit. There's a small number of police officers now in recovery from addiction themselves, and there's actually a higher number of politicians in recovery. I have no doubt alcoholism and drug addiction in Scotland is here, and it's here to stay, and it will get steadily worse in the short to long term, and nothing the Scottish Government is doing at present is likely to reverse that. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting we should close the Thistle safe consumption facility. We shouldn't shut it down. It's been built. We must give it every chance to work. I don't think it will, but we must give every chance to work. What I'm saying to the Scottish media and directly to the Scottish First Minister, Mr John Swinney, Mr Swinney, please go to Morrison's supermarkets, please, and go behind St Luke's in the nearby Bain Street. The people of Carlton had no choice in the decision for the safe consumption room to be located in Carlton. And of course, once it was decided by the Scottish Government that they were going to go ahead with this new innovation, it had to go somewhere, and that somewhere turned out to be Carlton. Right, that's where it ended up, Carlton. But please give Carlton some respect, Mr Swinney. Could you be good enough to lift the telephone and have this area cleaned up? It's very dangerous, it's disgraceful, and it's disgusting. This level of contamination in an area that people were born and raised in. They have to live with this on a daily basis. Their children play here. Are you listening to what I'm saying, Mr Swinney? Their children play here. Please, it's in your power to lift up the phone. The residents of Glasgow's Carlton deserve better. The blameless children that are growing up in this area deserve better. And the people of Scotland most certainly deserve better.
You know, I thought it very important that you see that video. I've known Colin a long time, and you know, you're wondering, was that an addict behind him and going in the bushes for it? It absolutely was, Matthew. That's the thing. See if you go there any day of the week. Any day of the week. Any day of the week, if you go to the safe consumption room, you'll see people taking the needles from the safe consumption room and then going out into the bushes to then shoot their drugs up, to inject their drugs. Why? It was, you know, people, I was there. There was two addicts that walked behind them as we were filming and went into the bushes to score their drugs. Not to score their drugs, to do their drugs. They scored their drugs elsewhere. And, you know, I've got images just, and the week before, I'm there. And people are doing crack cocaine. This week, we're in the Morrisons. We're trying to get these people on the route to recovery. And, you know, let's get some of the comments up, because there was a guy that said something that I thought was, you know, I've got a similar mindset here. RDL Racing, Slot Racing Club. This is, see, when I was running for All for Unity. And All for Unity, if you're an MSP, you get to put one member's bill. I wanted to swap it. I wanted to swap out methadone for cannabis grown on license for the NHS. You might think, Niall, you're nuts. Niall, you're absolutely nuts. But actually, people are parked on methadone for years, decades. This guy here holding the crack pipe, he's been an addict for 35 years. And he's been on methadone for, 20 of it. And he's on a special program at this safe consumption room that gives him a hit of diamorphine. And believe you me, I'm not lying here. I wouldn't lie to you. If I'm lying, put me in fucking jail. People are going into that safe consumption room, a select few people, and they're getting diamorphine put in needles for them. They're being given diamorphine at this safe consumption room, and they're taking it right then and there. You're not allowed to smuggle it out. It's not like when you take your own drugs in. You can take your own drugs in and do your crack cocaine in there. You can do your heroin in there, and you're given needle kits to do it. But people are going in there also, and they're being given diamorphine. And what happens, right? You're given one hit a day, sometimes two, he said. You're given one hit, and then what are they doing? Well, they're looking for more drugs the rest of the day. It's astonishing. But that was I put this comment up because I thought it was you've obviously had the same idea as me, RDL Racing Slot Racing Club. You've obviously had the same idea as me. It's a safer alternative, the cannabis, than it is to methadone. It really is. It's no. He's got another comment in here. I agree with you 100% now. Change it to cannabis. It's not addictive like the other stuff, and you get bored of it once you reach enlightenment and find purpose. It's grown all over the UK. So, having been involved in the cannabis industry, I used to run a CBD company for years. The UK exports more cannabis than any other country in the world. But you wouldn't understand. People wouldn't comprehend that. What do you mean we grow cannabis and export it? We export more cannabis than any other country on the planet. It's mostly there's a conglomerate of companies that do it. You're talking British Sugar. British Sugar is one of the biggest exporters of cannabis in the UK. It's all grown and licensed. It's all in fields. I think it's Surrey, Kent, whatever it is. It's all fenced off. You can't get to it, but they're growing cannabis and they're selling it to other markets. I appreciate your candidness here, Slot Racing Club. I really do. I've had his own addiction issues, and cannabis was the answer to breaking all. It's even if it wasn't you surely agree with me here as well, Racing Club, that it's not even about, even if it wasn't to break the addiction, it's a safer alternative, right? People are dying on methadone. And in the drug deaths, methadone is implicated in a huge percentage of the people dying and perishing to addiction. Methadone is a huge component in this. Of course, the people that are dying have got loads of drugs in their system. But even if it wasn't even if it didn't break the addiction, it would pose a sort of it would pose a lesser risk to people taking it. I mean, the people that are parked on methadone for decades, it's like a death sentence. And we are paying, the Scottish Government's paying through the nose millions of pounds a year to prescribe methadone to people when we could be growing cannabis on licence, on the NHS, and giving that out, and having a direct impact on the drug deaths. And maybe changing lives as well. It is a mouthful, your name. It really is. But again, this is 2 weeks ago, we show up and there's addicts in the bushes taking crack cocaine. There it is. There's a picture of it there. And I'm like, can I get a picture of your crack cocaine? Absolutely. Come on up. There you go. That's it. There's £20 worth of crack. And then this week we're filming and more addicts go into the bushes. There's a big problem over in this part of town in Glasgow. It really is. And, you know, I've been getting accused of lying. I've been getting accused of, you know, misinformation. I've been getting accused of this, that, and other by people that I'm just trying to sort this issue out. It's not about getting clicks. It's not about doing this. It's about bringing action. There's been so many people that get in touch because of the videos and because I'm shining a spotlight on this. So many people getting in touch that want to help. They want to help clean up the area. Pictures like this. Now this, in this image alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. There's 20 needles that I can see right off the bat in this picture, but there's more. 2 weeks ago, I show up a week ago on the Saturday there. Not even a week ago, it's like a few days ago. And there's more. There's more. People are getting these packages, these Orion medical packages. They're getting the needles from the safe consumption room, but then they're not choosing to take their drugs there. They're choosing to take their drugs elsewhere. So there's a big problem here. And we're going to arrange a clean-up. We're going to get the place cleaned up. But we want to shame John Swinney into action here. If he isn't shamed into action, then I'm going to collect all the needles and dump them on his doorstep. He's quite happy for the people of Carleton to have to deal with this on a daily basis. You know, if you're having to shop at Morrison's every other day, every day, whatever it is, you're running the gauntlet. Of course, you're running the gauntlet. You're running the gauntlet, not just if you've got kids, they could run out in the bushes, they can fall, they can prick their hands. If they put their hands out to stop them falling, they could easily go on a needle. Boom. You're injured. You on the night shift. I feel like it. Jesus, I'm going to have to end it. We've still got Starmer to go on, but I thought it was very important to talk about Scotland's addiction industry. So I'll just sort of sit back and ruminate a wee bit. You know, this is an industry, ladies and gentlemen. The needle packs. We are paying this company, Orion Medical Supplies Limited. We are paying for these needle packs to then give them out for free. We are paying for the methadone to then give out to people for free. That will kill people. We are paying for staff to run these facilities. We are paying for staff to maintain the facility. We're paying for, I mean, it's £7 million to put the place there. £5 million for the upkeep, for the running of it. If you think about it, and this is just a pilot scheme, if the SNP are in power this time, you know, in 2026, if they get another election, if they get in again, this is going to be rolled out right across Scotland. How many locations? Just say it's 10. Well, that's 70 million to put them down, and another 5 million a year to put them up. So that's what 120 million straight away. It could run, you know, it's if you double that, you're approaching £250 million. It's an industry. And you've got all these charities, all these quangos that want to sit about, they want to sip coffees, they want to talk about how bad it is, how we need to, how do we engage with the drug addict? How do we engage? How do we soften the language around drug addiction? When we should be going to the heart of the issue, we should be going after the drug dealers. If you stop the supply, they can't get a hold of them. It's all about going after the drug dealers. None of them want to do that. They're quite happy to be heroin flooding our streets. They're quite happy for crack cocaine to be flooding our streets. I just don't understand it. It would be so easy to find these drug dealers. You just, for any budding journalist out there, go to the safe consumption room and follow one of these addicts, and you'll find where they're getting the drugs. It isn't rocket science. Damn right it is. There are only around 8 million of you up here, and it's sad to see a wonderful people being destroyed. And this is what's happening, Racing Club. We're being destroyed. We're being destroyed, as we talked about extensively in the previous segment. We've been destroyed ideologically. We're being destroyed with drugs. And it's just so demoralising. It's just so demoralising. I mean, the only way to combat this, and we've got some interest with some politicians coming down to the area to see for themselves, because see, it doesn't even do any justice. Images like this, images like this guy showing his crack pipe, images like the crack itself, it doesn't do any justice through the screen. All these needles. And believe you me, the path on the way to these needles is just littered with needles. If you're going to come, bring steel toe cap boots, and they're all, we're not even seeing the true extent of this as well. They're all trodden into the ground. So below the surface, there's needles. It's truly, truly awful, this area. And it needs to be cleaned up. And that's what we're going to do. We will accomplish this area being clean. I assure you that, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost at 1,000 viewers. This is absolutely insane amount of viewers. Thank you ever so much for staying the distance. Almost 2.5 hours in. But there's an industry in the addiction services. And I get the feeling that this safe consumption room is a jobs for the boys type situation, where, because there's no many people using it, it's always immaculate, it's spotless, there's hardly anybody in it. I think there's 7 different cubicles or whatever for people to take. There's never more than one in use at one time. And inversely, it's not contributing to helping people get off drugs. This is what I thought that it would be doing. It's not helping people get off drugs. Did you see my comment on X now? I've read almost every comment that was under it, Matthew. If you want to put it again in here, if you want to copy past that, and I'll read it out again. But I've likely read it, but there's so many comments. Sometimes you don't remember them all. I'm sorry to say, but yourself maybe excluded for that, because you've been commenting. Your comments are rather fire, to be honest. But there's a jobs for the boys element to this. This safe consumption room. How well staffed it is. And how unbusy the actual staff are inside. They'll be sitting about drinking coffees and they'll be on their phones all day. when over the roads. This is the thing. Oh, it was a screenshot of the Pride and Hygiene. Aye, we did see that. It was absolutely, that was from the live broadcast, Matthew. I do remember it. Where I ended up taking a still image of it because it's so ironic, isn't it? So ironic. But when you look at this and you think, right, there's £5 million being spent a year or whatever on the staffing over the road. All these people sitting about on their phones all day, drinking coffee all day, talking shit all day, when across the road there's this absolute abomination. Why can't they just leave their offices, walk across the road, get an orange container, get a stick, and start picking them up? Why? Why is it? How is it even possible for us to be spending money on all the staff and nobody is going across the road to clean all this? And what they're saying, it's Morrison's fault. It's Morrison's fault for not cleaning it up. No, I don't think so. The needles are coming from the centre. We know that. So I use the analogy in the live stream that if we assume the Morrisons is like, you know, what we assume the drug consumption room, just say it's a pollutant. Just say it's an incinerator burning black bags. So this safe consumption room, you know, imagine it as a big incinerator burning black bags, spewing black smoke all day, every day. You would think Morrison's would kick up a fuck because all the smoke's blowing over Morrison's. It's, you know, the soot is over Morrison's. They have to clean the soot after the roofs, after windies, after everything, you know. It's the same thing with these needle packs. Instead of smoke that's spouting out the building and going everywhere and having an effect on the local area and diffusing right across the local area, these needles are being spewed out. These needles are diffusing. These needles are making their way from the consumption room to the car park and to the surrounding areas. It's the same concept. It's an environmental impact. That's what it is. And I mean, I can't really escape that analogy. I think it's just too perfect an analogy to think otherwise. Because if you think about the concentration of needles that are in that centre, they're making their way out here regardless. And everyone, even people in the comments, we've had so many negative responses to these videos and these pictures. They're like, Niall, go and clean them up your fucking cell then. What are you doing? Well, obviously, I can't go around with a black, you know, I've not got the equipment. No yet, anyway. But I'm going to have to buy multiple pieces of equipment, not just for me to clean it up, but for other people to help me clean it up. I've not got the I'm not an expert in cleaning needles. I'm a fuck. But it wouldn't even take, you know, it would take days to clean this up. So I'm getting flack for not cleaning it up, and then people are saying, "Oh, there's a form you can fill in. There's a form you can fill in to send to the council. If you see a needle, there's a form you can fill in. And then the council will be out with it within 24 hours, and they'll clean it up." What a lot of shit. What? So in this picture, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 needles. I'll fill out 20 forms. This is at one glance at this picture. At one glance, I'll fill out 20 forms for the council to come and lift the needles. Away and fuck yourself. No, it's obvious. The council know about this. The council know about this devastation. They're just choosing to do nothing. You know, that's exactly what I'm going to do, Matthew. You see, me and you seem to be a kindred spirits here. I know. Well, one, what I'm going to do, we're going to collect all the needles up first, and then I'm going to fill it, just because I think that I'd be filling out hundreds of forms. But then I quite want to do that to the council, Matthew. I see where you're going with this. I see where you're going. I see where you're going. You want to fill out a form for every single one of these needles and then dump. You want to dump 1,000 forms on the council desk and say there's 1,000 needles I want picked up. Get them done in 24 hours. I know. That's what I would like to do. It's just, I mean, how much work is involved in this? You know what I mean? What, you copy pasta a million a million forms? No, I think I mean that's a sort of, that's an exercise in trolling. You know, I do like to troll. Absolutely I do. But I think the more prudent thing today would just be to get a team out to clean it up. Get a team out to clean it up. To collect every single needle that we can find. To pick every single discarded spoon, bottle, wipe, Orion Medical Supplies wrapper. To collect them all. And then fuck them right on John Swinney's doorstep. Right at Butte House. And if they don't clean this up before I clean it up, that's what will happen. I'll tell you that right now. If John Swinney doesn't clean this area up before I do, then they're coming to his house. I'm not even joking. I am not joking about this, lady, and I will accept any fine that they want to pay, that they want to fine me with. I will take any fine. Because I don't care anymore. They can't do this to an area. They can't disrespect an area like this and not have repercussions. They just can't. And I see we've eclipsed the magical 1,000 viewer number. Well done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you ever so much for tuning in to the Niall Fraser Show. It's been a long one, if I'm honest. We're approaching a marathon sesh. You know, and I really should cap it up soon, but this is, see when you see the state of this area, it'll haunt your dreams to think that there's people, it's almost midnight now, there's probably people in these very bushes in pitch black shooting up or smoking crack cocaine right this very moment. To think that we were there a couple of hours on the Saturday, and then a week before we were there a couple of hours, and we ran into 2 people doing crack cocaine, then 2 people injecting within like an hour or 2 gap. So I think over the day, we're probably saying a minimum of 10 people are using this corner and maybe the other corner as well to inject drugs. So, I mean, just when you see the scale of the deprivation and what I think, I'll take the image away. I'm getting flashbacks. I'm getting PTSD if you're looking at these images. The sad thing is, when we're looking at the drug deaths here in Scotland, right? You know, you think, oh, there's 1,180 people died. Oh, there's 1,200 people died. And this is yearly. It's not including alcohol. It's not including suicides. Right, so we're talking about 3,000 overall. Approximately 3,000 people are dying, perishing to addiction. They're killing themselves. They're dying to the drugs that they're taking. Or they're dying with alcohol. every year, right? The scale of the problem is massive. If you've got 3,000 people perishing every year to addiction, how many people are addicts? That's the question. How many people are functioning addicts? It doesn't bear thinking about. But the scale of the problem here in Scotland is monumental. So that's been, I mean, Scotland's addiction industry. We're going to keep going back to that area. We're going to keep going back and back and back and back. And if John Swinney doesn't get there first, if John Swinney doesn't clean that area up before I do, well, they're coming to his house. They're coming to his house. So let's do a final bit. Let's change this to, if you could actually, while I'm changing something, if you could jump onto YouTube, we've got 1,000 viewers. We're trying to pump the numbers on YouTube. If you don't want to subscribe, don't then. But if you fancy doing it, jump onto YouTube. So I think you get a bit of viewing. What's the word I'm looking for? Experience. I think you get a bit of viewing experience over YouTube because I just cast it to the telly. Warring Starmer. And we'll spend ever so briefly on this because, you know, I have to get to my bed. I'm on the night shift, as this guy said. I'm on the night shift. Yes, I am on the night. It's shocking. So we've got Warring Starmer, right? I wanted to spend ever so briefly on this as well before we pack up our toys and go to bed. What happens when Trump is just about to strike a peace deal with Putin, as if by fucking clockwork? Oh, the European leaders are getting together. Crisis talks. It's a bumper episode. You know, as soon as he's about to strike a deal with Putin, bringing everyone together, and who wants? I mean, who is it that wants this war to continue? Honestly, we'll bring. Right, this is from Wikipedia. This is from Wikipedia. Let's bring it up. Get him away. Start sharing this one. Getting used to it. We're getting used to it. I mean, this is, it's not even a joke, but I've got this sort of, it's like a skit almost. Not long ago, we had Keir Starmer. We had Keir Starmer visit Auschwitz. We had Keir Starmer visit Auschwitz on the way back from Kiev. And he says to Zelensky, so how many casualties have you had? Well, we've had 14,000 military and civilian deaths. We're up to 1,000 estimated casualties overall during the UK and Russia invasion. Almost 1 million people estimated. I think it was something like 60,000 people missing. And Keir Starmer says, 1 million people dead, 60,000 missing. Okay, keep fighting. Keep fighting. I'm away to Auschwitz on the way back as I'm going home. I'll see you later. It's absolutely crazy. I've signed you up to 100 years of this. So I truly think we'll bring this down. That's just, I got a better casualty breakdown somewhere else, but that wasn't really a good estimate. You had injuries, casualties on Ukraine side, Russian side, 60,000 people missing. This war in the Ukraine, it was supposed to be the new economy. It was supposed to be the new war economy for the Europeans. Let's funnel billions of pounds into the Ukraine and we'll extract it back. That's what it is. Our economies across the Europe are absolutely in tatters. Let's create a new economy, the war economy. And this is why all the European leaders are freaking out. Because their money's been lit on fire by Trump's peace deal. The whole thing's just absolutely scandalous. But, you know, I was going to have, I wasn't so prepared, but this segment, I was more prepared with the Sandie Peggie stuff. I wanted to talk about that more. But this war in the Ukraine, you know, it's we get this headline today, you know, we're going to put UK troops in Ukraine. That'll help. That'll help ease tensions, he says. You know, folks, it just sometimes you just got to wonder what the hell is going through Keir Starmer's head. It's outrageous. But guys, I'm not going to spend another 5 minutes here. I'm absolutely knackered. So we've done a really massive segment on Sandie Peggie, which it deserved. It deserved a big segment. If you're just joining us, the story of Scotland that will be sort of consuming Scotland over the next few months is this Sandie Peggie. You know, we made the analogy that she's Truman in the Truman Show, and she's trying to break the matrix. She's trying to escape, but she represents us all here. She's trying to escape from this transgender ideology, and if she escapes, we all escape, because it'll have huge ramifications right across Scotland if she does. Brian Patrick McNulty just got the OCS song stuck in my head. No Profit in Peace, or something like that. Exactly. Glenn, hope to hear your thoughts on the show about Lucy Letby's situation. And you know, this is really quite a bone of contention, actually. A lot of people, I mean, there's been actual doctors come out and experts say that she didn't murder one baby. But again, this is this weird. It's the weird thing, Glenn, where you think the NHS, just how we're seeing NHS 5 come down on Sandie Peggie. We've seen her come down on a ton of bricks and try to shield evidence and try to make it anonymous. The NHS, that feels that there's such a culture of blame in the NHS and a spurious complaints. If you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, you know what I mean? If you it's like the ultimate ass covering exercise. If something goes wrong, somebody dies. It's like the ultimate ass covering exercise. You know, that's the worst thing that can happen, I think. You know, everyone just saying it's your fault, and the blame game starts when actually you're all trying to help the person. You know, there's tragedies happening in the NHS. No, everything can be helped. But I think in the Lucy Letby situation, I think that probably the NHS board has seen these deaths, and then they've maybe seen it coming, and then they've just had to pull the trigger. But I mean, I'm not an expert on the case. I just know that a lot of experts have come out and said that she didn't even murder one. But if we go with what the experts say, we'd all be double jabbed and triple jabbed and quadruple jabbed. Experts say get vaccinated to stop transmission. Aye. What's Jay saying? How about this to force the election? Withdraw consent to be governed by the SNP. The SNP got into power with 1.29 million votes. If we get a petition with more, then we'd have to give us an election. We see, I mean, don't knock it, Jay. You know what I mean? It's one of these ideas. It's just, you know, as soon as he said that, remember the petition to redo the general election that Keir Starmer got. He just went that. No chance. That's what I feel like. You know, and to be fair, Jay, the Scottish election is only a year away, a year and a half away. And 2021, as soon as the elections were packed, I'd done my very first podcast, talked about how fucked the West is. And my sort of closing sentiment was that we just have to maintain our sanity for the next 5 years. And we've almost got there. Racing Club, don't believe she killed anyone. Children's ward so heavily cambered it's almost impossible to do anything nefarious and witness childbirth twice and the ward was like a prison. Well, congratulations, Racing Club. Twice. Right, guys, that is it. The first time we've breached 1,000 viewers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you ever so much. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. If you're watching, I mean, it's just to show you the disparity in viewers you get. I've got 5 people watching on YouTube, and I've got 1,071 on X. That's the difference that X is making. You'd be better off not paying your taxes. They can't imprison all the taxpayers for non-payment, and it would bankrupt the government. Well, I wish that was the case. I wish that was the case. Because what would they do, Racing Club? They just go to the bank and go and be like, print more. Let the printing commence. Right, I'm not going to spend another minute here, guys. I need to get to my bed. Thank you ever so much for watching. But we can't finish the show without the outro music. So thanks for watching the Niall Fraser Show. We'll be back on Wednesday. I hope you've had a great night. I hope you've maybe learned something. I hope, you know, just have a great Tuesday when it comes, guys. So sayonara for me and enjoy the rest of your night.